所以我正話出出入入咧，可能未聽得全嘅，但係我都盡量喺如果問嘅當中。
Now, if there are repetitions in the questions, the witness can be more brief. Now, policy issues have been dealt with to a large extent. Now, in the code of practice, there are now in the documents there are photos showing the actual cases. Now, first on para 2.11 concerning the stock taking, perhaps the witness can give us more information. Because previously in LEGCO, in hearings about the reports, we already learned about the situation in 2010, and then in 2011 there was a consultant's on-site investigation, and there were 229,000 suspected UBWs. They were suspected, not confirmed. But this on-site investigation, if it's done by the consultants, then it's actually quite well substantiated. And prior to the 2011 report, which was the latest similar study, and was it done by you or was it done by a consultant? Do you have the information? Because we can use that to compare. Because what was the development prior to this 229,000 cases? Also, was this by one single consultant firm, or was the job subcontracted to others? Because if it's a report by a single consultant, then a lot of manpower would have to be deployed by that consultant for on-site investigation. And have you assessed the reliability of the 229,000 figure? Or 2.29 million cases? Perhaps you can start with 2.10. Now, we haven't done such stock taking before. It was outsourced to 35 consultant companies. The reports by the Thirty-five reports, 15 consultants. And when we receive the reports, we will do an audit, a sample check to see how reliable is the data. Mr. Ng Leung Sing. Now, through such sampling, can you tell us you accept the reliability of the data? Now, we wanted to get the actual figure. We want to get a rough estimate, so the consultants didn't have to be very detailed in this report. For instance, the dimensions of the UBW, whether the UBW was an approved structure, or whether, because there was already the minor work scheme, perhaps it was just a minor works and maybe they just didn't do it through the minor work scheme, but they just did what they saw. And there was an example. We in Jan 18, there was a photo, the second photo in Jan 18, and there you can see the outer wall of a building, and alongside it there is a 13F, that is the 13th floor of the building, and the protruding structures on the outer wall, mainly air conditioner support structures, clothes racks, and then on the lower floors there were metal cages at the wall, at the windows. So after stock taking, we get the number of total UBWs for that building. So here you express it in a number. And there is no distinction between actionable and non-actionable. You just ask for a basic figure from the consultant. That's right, we didn't go into a breakdown. Maybe you tell us what you requested of the consultant, because you spent $27 million. Of course, we see the photos in Jan 18, but can you explain what did the consultants do? What's the frame of reference? Now, on the 35 contracts and the 15 consultants, we require the consultants, in respect of the buildings to which they are located, to check the outer structures on the building. They have to take a photo, and they have to mark the code for that building. For instance, P3 or P2D, as in Jan 18, to represent the building or the structures, and then they have to tell us within a building how many structures there are, and if the consultant finds there is an obvious danger in any of the outer structures, they have to make an important immediate report to us. And we also request that the consultant to see whether there's any danger inherent in the outer wall of the building. So if there is some spoiling of the concrete, they have to report to us. So this is another service that we require the consultant to provide. In Gen 1, there's the information on this requirement. So you are satisfied that the consultants have done the work as you required? So from a value for money perspective, you feel that they have done what you requested? Now, Chairman, now the consultant work has been completed, and according to the contract, we have accepted the report as required under the contract. Now, say on concrete spalling, because there has been a recent case of concrete spalling and the concrete fell down. Where was it? In North Point. So when you read these reports, did you note such or notice such occurrences where, say, concrete spalling might be involved? Concerning the recent air conditioner structure falling down. We are still investigating the cause. Now, in this stock taking, we request that the consultant conduct visual check to see if any apparent UBWs are detected. These are not detailed reports. It's one of a number of services required. Now, you mentioned that you require the consultant to report concrete spalling. So there's $27 million involved. So, well, or if it's the North Point case, I have to go back and check. Your question is very necessary. If you separate into actionable and non-actionable, when they do the on-site check, they see a UBW of danger, of high dangerous level, then they have to make a report right away. Otherwise, if you treat it as all the same across the board, then it wouldn't be helpful to your taking action. Because in your evidence just now, you said you didn't require to report on the actionable versus the non-actionable items. You didn't require them to do that, did you? Now, under the contract, the consultant, if he finds the UBW is assessed preliminarily to be dangerous, or if there's some other building safety issue, some of an urgent nature, they have to report to us right away. So, for those 2.29 million cases, if there's an urgent case, it has to be reported. Right. Now, if there's further information to be supplemented, you can. Now, if you engage a consultant from value for money perspective, you must be able to detect what is urgent for you to take action. Now, also in the report, in the audit report, it said that you want to. You said that you were of the conclusion that to do it by removal orders in every case is not practicable, and it has to have reference to the current policy on UBWs. The said policy may be amended according to the circumstances from time to time. Now, if you say that it's amended from time to time, then it must be quite frequent. Now, how many occasions were the policies amended, and what's the outcome or effect? And concerning these policies, has there been public consultation before the amendment of the policy? Because 2.29 million cases are involved. Have you consulted the public? And also the categorization into actionable and non-actionable items. Now, have you taken those into considerations in your proposals? Now, we have still been keeping this policy. Now, since 1975, between every for every 1 or 2 decades, 1 to 2 decades, we would amend our policy. Now, these occasional amendments in policies, as I said earlier, they are wide-ranging in implications. Have you consulted public consultation? Apparently they haven't. And have you assessed the impact on different stakeholders, and have those affected persons been involved in your consultation? Now, the 2.29 million cases, some of them were very minor. Now, perhaps you can tell us 1.9 million were very minor cases involving air conditioners and so on. Now, $2.3 million seems a very high figure. It seems that the old districts are decaying, falling apart. The suspected UBWs, 2.3 million, 1.9 million of them were small facilities like air conditioner and clothing racks. Of course, when the consultant conducts on-site check, of course he would tell us if he sees an item of imminent danger. And in our policies, for those 1.9 million UBWs that of a minor nature, they are non-actionable. For the remaining 400, half a million odd, after taking out the signboards, there are about 300,000 left, and not all of them have to be actionable. We haven't taken the measurements, and we have no full understanding of the situation that they are in. Now, for the 47,000 on the podiums and rooftops, that was the subject of our policy they have to be removed. And in the past 4 or 5 years, we have issued removal orders for 44% of them. The question was, do you have to do a public consultation? Have you done any public consultation? Have you done a public consultation before you amend the policy? He said that there has been no substantial amendment of the policy. For the 47,000 cases, that involved the rooftop and podium structures. Now, when the 2011 policy was established, the stock-taking exercise was not yet completed. That was completed only in 2012. So it's not a result of the stock-taking that we came up with this policy. So have you done a public consultation? If you haven't, then you just say no. You have to provide the answer, otherwise we cannot write the report. For the 2011 one, that was discussed in the development panel of LegCo, and it was reported in the district councils, yes. Because you came to LegCo to explain. So was it discussed reported in different locations like LegCo? Now, when we went to meetings in LegCo, we might have mentioned this, but this is not a consultation of the public as a whole. It was discussed in the development panel, right?
I think Carrie Lam spoke about it then. Yes. Well, actually, whether it's big or small, they were UBWs. Okay, 2.16, paragraph B, paragraph number 3, under B, and it is about building owners' voluntary removal of non-actionable UBWs. Highlighting this removal might remind public that some UBWs need not be removed and might have a negative effect of discouraging voluntary removal of UBWs. So I'd like to find out about, is it that, what led you to this view? I mean, if they're illegal, they're illegal. Whether it's voluntary or not, I mean, they need to be dealt with. That's my understanding. So I'd like to get from you your view on, have you made a differentiation here, Director? Mr. Ng's view? Well, let me give you a response to his view on if there are to be two categories for the UBWs, actionable or actionable and non-actionable. But we don't want to give owners the image that if theirs were non-actionable, then they could just leave them aside and take no action. But we do want to encourage every owner, no matter what type of UBW they have, they should remove them as soon as possible. So for this paragraph, Roman letter 3, we said that there might be a negative effect of discouraging voluntary removal of UBWs. We don't have actual figure to support this claim. We're just saying that from, just by making a normal judgment. We hope that if there's a differentiation, that it might affect people having voluntary removal. So why do officials have so little confidence in the public? Don't you believe that Hong Kong people comply with the law? Don't you believe that Hong Kong people would do it voluntarily? If you educate them, if they understand the reasons, you can look at it from a positive perspective. If you take such a negative view, I think there are problems there. That's why Mr. Ng asked the question. Yeah, you have the mandatory window inspection scheme already, so that's kind of a mandatory. That's mandatory. So, well, we were talking about the mandatory scheme, yes, but here you talk about voluntary. That means, how do you strike a balance? The policy targets UBWs. Well, they are not a policy division. They carry out the policy. Maybe secretary or the permanent secretary can answer this. I'll try to clarify. Actionable UBWs are those that the Buildings Department would issue removal orders. And if within the designated period there's no compliance, then the department could consider launching prosecution. That's clear. But those who are which are non-actionable, then those UBWs will be put aside. It's not that we don't deal with them, but just that we will go to them after we've finished with the actionable structures. All UBWs are illegal to us. As explained by the director, if we emphasize too much that there's this actionable and non-actionable groups, then some people might think that, well, if mine belong to the non-actionable category, then I could actually wait till these structures become actionable. So that's the negative effect that we're worried about. I don't think you really answered the question, but let's move on to the next question. Okay, I'll finish after this in the paragraph 2.17. It's quite a long paragraph, but let me cite to you what's written in the middle. The Audit Commission views that since 2001, the BD has not set similar targets since 2011. Neither has the BD provided in its CORs a breakdown of the number of UBWs removed during a year into actionable and non-actionable ones. I'd like to ask then, this point about not having set similar targets, what are the reasons for that? Can you let us know, give us some evidence why by 2011 you have not set similar targets, and the breakdown of the number of UBWs removed, is that useful? Did you find that useful at all? What are the difficulties that you had come across? Director, could you try to answer this? Well, we know that there was a new policy in 2011. Did you find that the 2011 policy was unenforceable? That's why since then there's been a change. Yeah, in 2011. In 2001, you set a target of removing 15,000 to 300,000 UBWs in 5 to 7 years. And since 2011, you haven't set any more targets. Why? Well, maybe because there are just too many of the UBWs. Just tell us the reason, please. Director, Chairman, yes. In 2001, back then, Hong Kong had a lot of UBWs, particularly on the exterior buildings that actually can be seen. Yeah, you can see from the picture I showed you. Yeah. So back then, on those UBWs, we set a target of removing 150,000 to 300,000 in 5 to 7 years. As for single staircase buildings, back then the Buildings Department and Fire Service Department did some stock taking and identified the number of buildings involved. We managed to set targets then because of the numbers available, and we knew how much we could do in a certain period of time. Yeah, that was back in 2001. Yeah, well, you had those targets because you could identify the dangerous buildings, right? Or dangerous structures, right? Yes. You had a target then to remove those dangerous structures. Okay, let's carry on. But in 2011, obviously, the buildings with obvious dangers have been dealt with. So when the policy was set in 2011, we had to deal with another type of UBWs, including those on the rooftops, podiums, lanes, and so forth. They were not necessarily dangerous, but in terms of enforcement, they actually were more difficult to deal with compared to our work 10 years beforehand. And also, quite a number of UBWs are within flats, like subdivided flats. Yes, just then we heard that in 2011, whether there were hazard posts or not, well, the problem occurred because we didn't really know. We didn't know how big the problem was because we hadn't done the stock taking. So you couldn't set a target, right? You couldn't set a target then in 2011 because of the vast problem out there. Yeah, our policy did set a clear direction. So why didn't you set the target then? As I said, because in the past 4 years, we put a lot of effort into dealing with the rooftop structures. But I know you did a lot of work. You tried very hard, but you didn't meet the goal. My committee here is to see whether you managed to reach the goal, and you said you couldn't. So why? the follow-up question was, Mr. Ng was asking, was your policy, with the policy in after the policy in 2011, why couldn't you set targets? Well, Chairman, because we're not dealing with structures that pose immediate danger, like in the case of the rooftop in the one staircase building. So we didn't set target on when we could deal with all the rooftop structures. So all our questions were sort of related, but you still haven't been able to answer them, at least. But anyway, Mr. Ng, any more follow-up questions? Yes, my understanding is what Chairman said, because of the vast number of structures involved, and so there's a big gap in the number between 2 million odd and 150,000. But of the 2 billion odd, $1.9 million did not require any action, and yet the department has got from us $1.2 billion over several years. So I need to find out what have you done out of the $1.2 billion you have got from us. I know the business department did a lot of work, but the scope of their work is so broad and the policy is so wide. So let me emphasize that, I think my understanding is, I think you emphasize quality more than quantity. Is it why? Maybe quantity comes after quality to you, right? Yeah, Chairman, just tell us the truth. Just tell us before the secretary. You can force him to give you more manpower. We're here to help you, Director, to reach the goal. We want to help you to get more resources so the Hong Kong can become a safer city. Thank you. Mr. Ng, well, you mentioned, thank you for your point about, emphasis on quality than quantity when it comes to dealing with UBWs. Indeed, in dealing with such a large number of structures, what we need to do is to tackle what poses the most danger. So the big problem with the 2011 policy was, why did I stop him? I will give you time later on. Okay, there was a problem with the policy. So, Hakan? Okay, you first. Chair Hakan? I'll go to paragraph 3. Okay, in that case, let's go to Paul then. Looking at paragraph 2.16a, the last sentence. Sometimes policies could be changed. So for paragraph 2.16, the last sentence in paragraph A. Paul, yeah, do you want to follow up here? Yes. I think for the big action, looking at the effect of the action, of course, members have asked questions, but let me follow up. In paragraph 2.16, the explanations given in paragraphs A and B there, I like to follow up by asking, you spend so much money finding consultants to do the work needed. In your contracts, understand that you did ask the consultants to give a detailed descriptions of the UBWs, including providing pictures. That's correct, right, Director? Yeah, for large scale works, right? Chairman, for large scale works, consultants are required to give us information on the description of the type of UBW. They need to give us advice on whether the UBWs need to be removed. So that's different from stock taking. Yes, in Gen 1, about your brief to the consultancy. Gen 1, you can see, in Gen 1. Can you explain to us, those who are watching the video, that they may not know what Gen 1 is? Yeah, can you explain? Yeah, Gen 1 is basically your consultancy agreements, the brief for stock taking exercise on unauthorized building works. and unauthorized signboards. So basically, you commission consultants to, do those work according to what's in Gen 1. And in paragraph 3 on page 2, on descriptions of the assignments, what you expect the consultants to do, and it's included there, of course, what they need to do, locations, pictures needed, preliminary idea on whether the buildings or the structures are safe. Can you confirm these are your requirements for the consultants, Director? Yes. Yes. This is a contract requirement for the stock ticking. But let me supplement. This is not what covers the large-scale works we were discussing. Yeah, he was referring to Gen 1, paper Gen 1, paragraph 3, section 2, right? My question is, your assignment for stock ticking, and is that in 2.16, paragraph 2.16a, it's written that you would ask the consultants to provide information on what type of UPWs should be actionable. But with a change in policy, whether a UPW was actionable depending on the prevailing UPW policy. That's what's written in 2.16a, which might be revised from time to time to meet the needs of the circumstances. Director, in the document, we look at each sentence very clearly before asking questions. We have the right to ask you based on what's written in the paper and the reports. Yeah, 2.16a, you got that right? Well, in our contract, that is paragraph 3 on page 2, we do ask the consultants to carry out an on-site investigation and put on record by way of photos the UPWs, signboards, to let us know their location, type, and number. Under such requirement, we never ask the consultants to measure the size of the UPW, nor do we ask the consultants to, in accordance with the policy, to make recommendations on whether the structure is actionable or non-actionable. Because we knew that there are so many numbers, so many of them, UPWs. If we carry out 35 contracts at the same time, it would require a lot of time. We spent $27.4 million in carrying out the exercise. Therefore, we didn't ask the consultants to do a further analysis on each UPW. Director, Mr. Chair, Paul Chair, referred to Gen 1, page 2, and this paragraph 3. There is this requirement, and that's why he asked you the question, given what's there. Let me try to help you. The question was, why didn't you ask them? You said policy can be revised from time to time, but you could, at the time of the stock ticking, in accordance with the policy, then ask the consultants to differentiate between actionable and non-actionable UPWs. Why didn't just you take one step further so that the consultants' reports may be more precise and you have a clear idea on what to do and how to enforce the policy, and probably know better the situation then? You said that if there are if it's made too clear, then some people may not take the action that should be taken. Well, that means that you may not trust the public, and yet you have not helped the public understand more what they're required to do by law.
Chairman, concerning the stock taking exercise, it was not a freezing survey. It was a stock taking exercise. And then para 3, the second paragraph. Now the consultant was required to tell us whether the UBWs found were dangerous. When there are reports, our colleagues inspect the UBWs and decide whether they are actionable or non-actionable. And the complexity of the task goes far beyond the requirement in the consultancy brief. So in the brief, we merely required some basic information about the UBWs from the consultant. So based on the information from the consultants, we decided that there were 2.3 million UBWs, and there were 600,000 photographic records. So concerning the 2.3 million, did the consultants form or tell you whether they were safe or not? Do I need to read out to you para 3, second paragraph?
Of the existing UBW unauthorized signboard and other building safety issues by visual inspections on site and report on any imminently dangerous situations identified during the site inspections to BD. 咁嗰度佢有冇做到呢一點啊？謝議員間接問你，所以我今朝咧吳願問嗰陣時咧，北角嗰個簷篷嗰個呢個石屎剝落咧，你哋有冇喺度啊嘛？而家嚇。
So did they do it? And did the consultants tell you about the problem in North Point? Because you spent $27.5 million on the 10-odd consultancies. You gave them the brief, and consultants were expected to follow the brief. The consultants acted in accordance with the brief, Chairman, and we accepted the consultancy reports. Paul. Yes, maybe the consultants did give preliminary reports on the safety conditions of the UBWs. But then concerning the basic data provided by the consultants, or based on the basic information you had, I think you should have categorized the different UBWs. For example, we have Appendix 1 in Gen 1, and you can also find a list in Appendix B of the Director of Audit's report. So how come you were not able to, based on the information available, why didn't you decide which categories needed to be acted on, immediately or as urgently as possible? Now, well, no, I don't think we'll continue with this this line of questioning. So please do not repeat what you've said. We keep on asking questions, but if you can't give us satisfactory replies, then we will give our observation in our report. Yes, Chairman, concerning actionable UBWs, one category is new items. In fact, I have already mentioned the definition of new items. There can be different possibilities. For example, reconstruction after the previous operation, or we have reasons to believe that the UBW was carried out in the previous year. And in the stock taking exercise, the consultants could not have ascertained during the site inspection that the UBW was a new one and so should be demolished. In order to ascertain that the UBW is a new item, a lot of verification work has to be done. But in the stock taking exercise, we did not require the consultants to do such time-consuming work, which required, in fact, a lot of research and inspection. And then concerning UBWs posing imminent danger, now the consultants basically did what was required of them under para 3.2, and in fact they reported to us imminently dangerous situations identified, and we also took action. We also have LSOs targeting actionable UBWs. So I say we have a target building, and in a target building there are different types of UBWs which have to be dealt with. But then the consultants do not know which buildings we were to target, and so they could not tell us which UBWs and in which buildings should be actionable. Say if we identify one target building for LSO, then non-actionable UBWs immediately become actionable ones. And it was impossible for the consultants to do such analysis in the stock-taking exercise. Chairman, may I refer to para 2.16? Not visible, and then B1, a breakdown would not be a good indicator for assessing the effectiveness of the BD's enforcement action, and then also highlighting a breakdown would make owners of non-actionable UBWs delay the removal of the UBWs. So, in fact, was there omission on your part at that time, as you had to commission consultancies? Why didn't you ask the consultants to provide a breakdown? And then the explanations given seem to me that you are trying to hide your omission. You're saying that the public are not interested, this is not of public concern. At that time, consultants had to do stock taking concerning UBWs on external walls. At that time, we did not require the consultants to measure the dimensions of UBWs on external walls. And as we did not ask consultants to provide dimensions, then there was no information on whether the UBWs were actionable or not. Now, for canopies, under the present policy, if the width is less than 600 mm, then the cases are non-actionable. But if the width exceeds 600 mm, then the cases are actionable. And many of these cases are dealt with under our LSOs. We did not require consultants to provide the dimensions. Say, for example, for air conditioners frames, again, there is the 600 mm rule. But if the size exceeds 700 or 800 mm, then in fact the case is actionable. But the 600 mm is in your practice notes already. The consultants knew your policies very well. If they did not know your policies. They could not tell you which were UBWs. So consultants knew which of the works were unauthorized building works. So your explanation is not acceptable. In fact, you must not move the goalposts. The policy was there, the practice notes were there, the rules were there, everything was in your practice notes. Chairman, before the director gives a reply, I wish to supplement, but I thank you for your supplementary question, Chairman. Now look at para 2.10 in the report. You came to LegCo for funding, and you said that the stock-taking exercise would enable the department to set up a comprehensive database for making appropriate arrangements for prioritizing its enforcement actions and conducting various LSOs. So when you came to LegCo for funding, you made your objective clear. You said that you wanted to build up a comprehensive database to facilitate your LSOs and the prioritization of your enforcement actions. But now you are telling us that the consultancies could not help you set up a comprehensive database. Director, Chairman, we did spend some money on the stock-taking exercise, and on the average, the cost was $700 per building. So I think this cost per building can give us an idea as to how in-depth the consultancy could be or could have been. In fact, it was not our intention for consultants to study our practice notes, to inspect all the UBWs in great detail, and so on and so forth. In fact, consultants carried out visual inspections of the UBWs and took photos. So for each canopy, for each air conditioner's frame, if the consultants had been expected to carry out detailed assessments of each and every UBW, then the cost per building could not have been $700 per building. So, but why did you not make that clear to LegCo? You told LegCo that you would have to set up a comprehensive database, and the then LegCo approved the funding on the basis of the information you provided. Because Director, the policy affects many families. The policy caused nuisance, and I think what is important is that the policy must not cause a nuisance to the public, and what is important is that the policy can ensure building safety. Whether the cost per building is $700 or what is not the most important thing. And also, Chairman, the consultants were experts, but then and you're telling us that the consultants who were experts could not know which UBWs were actionable and which were not actionable because they didn't have dimensions. So how can you expect owners and members of the public at large to judge which UBWs should be removed as early as possible? And Chairman, in fact, we have many UBWs, 1.9 of them are minor amenity features. And according to our enforcement policy, action doesn't need to be taken on them for the time being. But then, for works which were not exempted and which did not get prior approval, then basically they are UBWs. And we encourage owners to maintain their buildings. We have the military building inspection scheme, and very often during major maintenance operations, UBWs are removed. No, I think you're getting more and more unreasonable. Now say there is an air conditioner's frame and you didn't take any action. Now in the 2011 policy, you said that you would only take action on UBWs which posed imminent or obvious danger. So is it that and so it's the Buildings Department has not been taking enforcement action? It hasn't been acting in accordance of the law. Permanent Secretary. So the chairman is saying that if consultants do not know how to judge whether UBWs were actionable or not, how could members of the public do so? Now, in fact, we have a lot of information on the Buildings Department website, and there is a lot of information. For example, if a cabinet exceeds a certain size, then it's a UBW, for example, if it's a cabinet placed outdoors. Now, when the Buildings Department issues a summons or a removal order, it has to make sure that it is a UBW, so it has to be clear about the dimensions. So the dimensions were not measured during the stock-taking exercise, but if the BD is to take action, it must take all the measurements and go through all the necessary procedures. Now, there is a regime for minor works. There is the MWCS. So, is it that if they are unauthorized, then you demolish them or remove them? So it seems that in fact there are far more UBWs than 2.3 million. Say, for example, there may be 3 conditioners in one flat. I want to say that in a PAC, we make remarks based on the facts. You showed us a photo, and the consultants told you some of the works might be unauthorized buildings works, but then there were no dimensions, and then you decided which buildings to target, and then you identify the actionable UBWs, right? But now, you seem to be telling us that in fact there are a lot of UBWs, and this is really very alarming. Chairman, the BDs said that it took enforcement action in accordance with the law, and of course later we'll discuss how effective the BD has been in taking enforcement action. So sometimes you're saying that the law requires you to do this and do that, and then sometimes you are saying that yes, there are these requirements in the law, but then we have manpower constraints. It is impossible for us to do everything required by the law. And Mr. Allen Leung said that some owners were unhappy because they saw many UBWs being tolerated. But you do know that in Hong Kong there are many buildings that are over 40 years old. Now you look at Gen 10 and you'll see that there are many old buildings, and there are a lot of UBWs. So perhaps you should tell owners that in fact certain old buildings will not be targeted for the time being, but at the moment you are telling them that all the UBWs have to be removed, and but you're not taking action against them, and you're saying that you don't have the resources to take such action. Director.
The director, now on in Gen 10, it mentioned the category of UBWs to be abolished. Now, we have always enforced the law according to these categories. The new UBWs, we will do them. The 8 ones, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, those are of imminent danger. Now, if it's in large-scale operation, we'll do them. And one of them, under C, point C, it refers to UBWs on the outside of the building, like on the rooftop. And there's a bracket. It says that it doesn't include the minor works under the MBCS. So the policy makes it clear if it's just a very small canopy or air conditioner support structure or clothing racks, it will not be an actionable item. So the 1.9 million items are basically under C. Yes? Now, if you look at what we did, whether it's the cages outside the old buildings, or whether it's the rooftops in single staircase buildings, for these two, it took us over 10 years. So if we said in 2011 that there's going to be a change, that is the rooftop, light well, and back lane structures, whether they cause them in danger, we will do them. Now, it's not just by the building department issuing removal orders, and the department has to deploy staff internally. So under the MPs, in the mandatory building inspection scheme, when the authorized persons find that there are UBWs, they have to state it in the report. All this is to enable us to be able to remove some of these UBWs under the new policy. So you do have to allow us some time. You have to allow the department some time to accomplish their work. Now, the members who have spoken this morning basically feel that the department has had insufficient resources to accomplish their task. But perhaps you have been too ambitious in your policies, too brave. Perhaps the secretary at the time felt that the department or the bureau can achieve a lot. Now, what we are trying to address is this. Now, if for the older buildings, if it's minor infringements, and we're also going to ask about the minor works scheme. Now, the minor works control scheme has not been that successful because there have been very few applications. So you have to consider the old buildings where there is no danger involved. Maybe you can amend your policy so that you can withhold your law enforcement or maybe even provide amnesty after registration. The PS or the secretary? Now, this is perhaps a policy. Perhaps the PS can speak first. Now, let's look at the actionable items. For the old buildings, now we take action on the basis of whether it constitutes danger to the occupants and the public. Now, so if there's imminent danger to the lives of the public, I think people would agree that it has to be done even if it's in old buildings. Now, on new UBWs, of course, we don't want the snowball to pile up. So even if it's new UBW in old building, it has to be done. And under C, why is it that we make an adjustment in the year? Because there have been many complaints, as Mr. Leung referred to, because today you are demolishing my rooftop structure, but there's the rooftop structure next door, but in that case there has been no complaint, so we are not dealing with it. So we changed the policy. Now, in fairness is one reason we want to deal with all these structures in the same way. Now, if there's a large-scale operation, of course, it's done when there's greater danger to the public involved. And F is for large-scale action. In G is where there have been. So looking at all these categories, now, unless the public thinks that the government needs to change its policy, especially for old buildings, otherwise we don't think we need to change the policy. Now, of course, public safety is the major concern for law enforcement. And in particular, before 1975, you had no policy, and then in 2007 you have this policy, and then in later 2011 you expanded it to the so the policy is being tightened all the time, and 40-year or older buildings, now you have now also you have admitted that you have been impractical in some of your policies, so you shouldn't create yourself such a major challenge that the public gets the impression you never fulfill the target. So the public may be confused or disappointed, or they may think you'll be cynical in saying one thing and doing another. So when we come to your removal orders, we may further get this impression that you only act toughly for those who are compliant, but for others who don't bother to listen, you are unable to do anything. Maybe we can come to part 3. Perhaps Mr. Liu, I'll ask on 2 first. I'd like to follow up first. On actionable and non-actionable items. Now, I agree with the Director of Order in his proposals in 2.17. Now, in order to enhance public accountability and transparency of the BD's effectiveness in tackling of the UBW problem, the BD should consider publishing in CORs and on its website the annual number of actionable and non-actionable UBWs removed. Now, I think the secretary or the director can speak on this. Now, is this policy still not being fully entertained? Now, if even within the department you don't have separate lists of what are actionable and non-actionable items, then how do you act? You are unable to do your work. Perhaps it's the secretary, or maybe even better, the secretary, the secretary or the director, or is it secretary? Chairman, we will respect the PAC's views and we will implement them. I welcome that they will consider our proposals, but I hope they will have these two lists, at least internally. Now it says that under 2.16b3, you say there might be a negative effect of discouraging voluntary removal of UBWs. Now let's not go into that, but let them give us a concrete answer before we write the report. Will you consider and then prepare two lists, one of actionable items and one of non-actionable items? And if you are going to draw up such a list, how will you draw it up? And if not, can you give us the reasons? Now, from a value for money perspective, you have to allocate manpower and resources, and the list will be helpful for you. And we can assess your effectiveness accordingly. The secretary? Mr. Leong referred to 2.16b. The controlling officer's report has to report every year what has been done, and on the removal of UBWs, there has to be separate lists of actionable and non-actionable items. I believe that what Mr. Leong is driving at, yes, the last paragraph in 2.17, as I said, we will respect the members' views, and I will understand with my colleagues on whether they can actually provide the data. We will come back to you before the report is written. The main thing, Chairman, is that even if you don't have in-house these two lists, I can't imagine how you actually implement your policy. In that case, you are merely being perfunctory. You are not putting in real effort. You tell me how you can achieve your announced policy unless you have these two lists. So I look forward to a reply. Now, on the actual implementation of the policies versus UBWs, now in 2011, you said you came up with 2.3 million UBWs, and as has been pointed out, 1.9 million are of minor nature, and the administration is still saying in PAC that for these minor works, we will deal with them under the minor works control scheme, so everyone is happy. Now, looking at the audit report, 2.3, 2.31 first. Now, it said that between 2011 and 2013, there were actual there were 34 cases, infringing cases, that of the 2,340 cases would cite audit completed. The BD had identified a total of 34 cases involving non-compliance with the requirements of the buildings ordinance. However, the BD had not issued warning letters. The building department said that the buildings department has to need to strengthen action on related prescribed building professional and prescribed registered contractors upon identification of non-compliance with the requirements of the buildings ordinance in carrying out minor works. So when you use the MBCS to deal with these 1.9 million minor structures, you might give the impression that, again, you are being perfunctory. Why is it that there have been so few cases detected, and that you are not doing anything with regard to the other cases? Can you speak closer to the mic? Actually, we have followed up, and we thank the Audit Commission for its report. We have speeded up and strengthened our law enforcement up to now. We have started prosecution on 40 cases. So I thank the Director of Audit, because you haven't done anything until the audit, or you don't take enough action until there is an audit. I hope Mrs. Hui can be clear. So you seem to be saying that it's after the audit that you have done 40 cases. Is that the appropriate attitude? I hope I supply some more information. It doesn't mean that we lay prosecution for those 40 cases. Now, before we actually prosecute, if we find problems on site check, we will find the professionals and the contractors. If the problem can be rectified, well, we phone them, or we issue letters for them to rectify. Now, if they are unable to rectify, we will issue letters, warning letters, and we will consider prosecution. Now, we have issued over 100 letters of admonition, so we have done the work before the Director of Audit started his work. Now, looking at the past few years, now we have, last year we received almost 10,000 reports on air conditioning support structures. So it can be seen that the MBCS is working. Now on 1.87 million cases. Now, given that there are so many cases, the 10,000 or so applications are still a small number. Now I heard Mrs. Hui give us an answer. Now, in paragraph 2.31, if you count from the top down,
我頭先讀咗。
Line 4. I read it out just then. That's the result of the audit from 11 to 13, 2011 to 2013. Of the 2,042 cases with site audits completed, a total of 34 cases involved non-compliance with the requirements of the building's ordinance. Then, however, the report says the buildings department had not issued warning letters to the related prescribed building professionals and prescribed registered contractors or taken any prosecution action against them. That's why I asked you the question. Is it that, after the site audits, 34 cases were identified? Whether you issue warning, there's not then, but then previously there were no warning letters issued. So do you agree with this conclusion made in paragraph 2.31 or what? Mrs. Hui? Looking at our cases, they involved various degrees of non-compliance. Sometimes they had not filled in the form as required. From 2011 to 13, actually, we only implemented the system in 2001, and of course, in the process. In the past 2 years, for example, we had a lot of consultations with the industry to find out about the issues the operators faced. And we try to help them actually address the problem so that slowly the quality could improve. Well, let's not dwell on this point. May I ask the administration, can you tell the Commission or this committee that to ensure the smooth running of the HMWBS, would you enhance communication with the contractors to speed up their work? Yes. Mrs. Hui, yes. Could you tell us or give us the information on over the past few years how you communicated with the contractors, professionals concerned to show us that you did do work to try to find a solution? Okay, please just let us know. Help us understand that you did some work in this respect. I don't, think that we can make a report without information from you. Okay. Okay, Chairman, looking at paragraph 2.32, the report stated that some 96% of the 1 million odd household minor works identified in the 2011 stock taking exercise could be validated under the MWVS. The BD set targets of validating 1,000 of these minor works in 2011, and yet the targets for the following 2 years were strange. The target set was 100 each in 2012 to 2014. That's 1/10 of the others. Why is this target? Why is it that there were 1,000 in 2011 and yet from 2012 to 2014 there were 100? A total of 1,300 household minor works from 2011 to 2014. Why the reduction in the number? Mrs. Hui, I think it's because we could see that the cases that came under the validation scheme was limited. So it's really pointless setting a high target. We can put it this way. The administration feels that, in assessing whether the validation scheme is effective, we use safety as the benchmark. It's not that once a structure has been inspected, then the scheme works. We need to consider the information associated with all the works. For example, supporting frames for air conditioners, well, there are 10,000 supporting frames, cases of supporting frames. Under the scheme, of course, we could validate the frames or remove them and build a new one instead. Well, so it's not that if there's a small number of validation, then the scheme is not working. The public had a choice. The scheme gives the public a choice. You can see that maybe the owners chose to remove the frames and build a new one instead of having the old frame, validated. So, Chairman, whether looking at paragraph 2.32, the number of validations there, or the figures cited in paragraph 2.31, the suspected signs boards outside a building. All these infringements cases, the owners involved, they use this validation scheme to deal with these structures, but there is not much incentive for owners to take action, whether it's for signboards, outside buildings, or the 1.9 million minor works. We actually got some ideas this morning because, there was not that much enforcement. There's no incentive. There's just no incentive for the owners to take action because you don't really have the lists there. Internally, you don't have the lists, and the public have no idea what are the major structures that need to be dealt with. So there's no incentive for them to join or support the validation scheme in relation to the 1.9 minor works identified in the 2011 stock-taking exercise. I don't know the witnesses, the present today, whether they agree with me or not. I think at this stage, as a member of this committee, that's my observation. If you agree with my observation, then you need to tackle the problem at its root. Well, it goes back to the same issue. Have you given the impression to people that you're really serious with enforcement, law enforcement? Well, if people don't want to be prosecuted, then they might go for the validation scheme or not. So, can anyone answer this? We might mention this in the report too. So, the director? I think Mrs. Hui could continue responding. When it comes to enforcement of the law, well, it's Mrs. Hui's team that actually handles it. Mrs. Hui, can you answer that? I'll try. We see that the lack of incentive is a difficulty, even though, like for the prosecution against signboards, before the validation scheme for signboards was implemented, we had an average 90 minor works each month. But after the scheme came into place, in the past 16 months, we see that there were about 380 minor works related cases. So you can see that the system, or the validation scheme itself achieves some effects. But still, we are taking actually implementing the law on a step-by-step basis. We have some large-scale operations in a pilot scheme in Shem Shui Po, on the street in Shem Shui Po. a scheme that actually focused or targeted signboards. If there are any signboards that were erected in violation of the law, then the owners could actually tackle it through the validation scheme. Next year, we would promote the large-scale operations to 5 districts. Alan. Chairman, I think we still have some time before we need to write up the report. I would like to ask Mrs. Hui to give us a paper to this committee, if you agree that the incentive isn't there. Please address in the report what will you do. Are you going to increase the incentive or what? Would like to get an answer, for the sake of a report. Mrs. Hui, or Director? For PAC, we want to look forward, and we do hope that you can let us know whether you see where the problem lies and what you're going to do to tackle it. Alan, okay. Maybe let's stop here. Let's not go into part 3 yet. Paul, is that right? Is that okay with you? Do you want to ask questions? Paul, okay. We can ask the questions next time when we go to part 3. Yes, Chairman, I agree. Since we're asking for supplementary information from Mrs. Hui, I'd just like to ask about Appendix A, about the Buildings Department organization chart. Mrs. Hui is responsible for 1 division. Since the evidence we got this morning shows that there's other divisions responsible for demolitions, under department, way overworked. So how do you distribute your workload? Can you give us some idea about your staff deployment and division of workload? Yeah, could you give us some information? Okay. Director? Okay. Yeah, we can provide you with that information. All right. Any other questions? Let's wait till the next meeting. Okay. If not, then thank you all for coming to today's hearing. We will discuss further. And Saturday, we're not having the meeting on Saturday